you find this?
Hello and welcome into Airshow Sports. I'm your host, Aaron Cantu. Tonight, we're featuring our first edition of NBA Finals Talk, where we're breaking down the big game, the big series between two of the top teams in the NBA and some of the top players in the world. LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers against Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. I'd like to bring in longtime Golden State Warriors fan and Airshow Sports NBA analyst Miles Kerlock. Miles, thanks for taking the time, man. There's been a lot made of this series. The Golden State Warriors are the consensus favorite, as they should be, with the top offense and defense in the league. Just from your fan perspective, how do you feel about this series?
We're definitely coming out looking for revenge. Last season, it just could not close the door on the best player in the world, in LeBron. And I think that's something we have to do again. Got to come out to that quick lead. And need to be able to shut it down, because what makes me nervous as a fan is LeBron in a Game 7.
Now, Miles, Steph Curry is one of the top players for Golden State, but he was heavily criticized after having a lackluster performance in last year's NBA Finals. He's a guy that, in my opinion, the ball needs to be in his hands. He's really that engine that makes that offense run for the Warriors. So what kind of mindset does he have to go into this series in order to be an exponential factor for Golden State?
Yes, definitely. So, you remember from we had Game 1 last year, and Steph did not show up Game 1 in the finals. But Steph, I think this whole playoffs as a whole, he has been a lot more consistent. His defense is a lot better this year, and he's had to guard great point guards. I think he's going to need to keep the ball moving, come off screens. Like you said, the ball needs to be run through Steph Curry. The offense needs to be ran through Steph Curry. When you see them struggle, they start to dish it down to Kevin Durant, ISO ball, and run plays through Kevin Durant. When the offense is ran through Kevin Durant, it's actually less productive than when it's ran through Steph Curry.
Looking back at last series for the Warriors, they had a Game 1 scare against San Antonio at home. And something that I noted was the fact that Kawhi Leonard had made such a huge impact against the Warriors, which kind of gives the question of, if Kawhi can make such an impact, what is LeBron going to do? So in that sense, how do you feel about the Warriors' chances going into the series?
I think you got to look. The Spurs came out, they had a great game plan. Pac, he drew up a great defensive game plan that got the Warriors out of their rhythm. They weren't running in transition. They were not passing the ball as much. So I think that's the beat on the Warriors. You got to get them out of their game. And that's exactly what they did. And obviously Kawhi was a big centerpiece of that by being able to stop Kevin Durant. You see when they get into trouble, they like to ISO Kevin Durant because he is such a great scorer.
Now, Miles, NBA championship basketball, there's always a guy that we don't even think about that makes a huge impact on the series. For you, who are your X factors going into this 7-game series? And talk about Draymond's impact as a rebounder, a scorer, a facilitator of that team. Really the guy who makes that thing run.
Draymond is that energizer bunny that gets the Warriors going. And obviously his touches have gone down, his per game, but on the defensive side, and the way he rebounds, the way he begins a fast break for us and allows Steph, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson to run up the court. Both benches have not needed to step up so much because the starters have been playing so well. JaVale McGee, he did have a big game when he got the start, and I think he's going to need to come off the bench and do the same thing. And I think he is going to be the kind of the X factor off the bench, because he can rebound with Tristan Thompson, and just the dynamics of the offense that he adds on the pick and roll. It seems like no one can stop it. For the Cavs side, you got to look at Kyle Korver coming off and doing what he's been doing, shooting the three ball very well. Look for Channing Frye. Channing Frye actually has been shooting very well this playoff series. I think the benches will have a big part of this game, and I think there's multiple guys that can affect the game.
Miles, is there any other storylines that you like to touch on, before we wrap this thing up with your pick? There's so many storylines. Pick from the buffet, man.
LeBron. I mean, you saw him have a little lapse in the first quarter going 4 fouls and then a whole lapse in game 3 against Boston. You see his minutes have gone up. He's on the floor the most. He's averaging 41 minutes a game. That's quite a bit. Granted, he's averaging 33 points a game as well. But we'll see if that plays a factor, because I don't think there has been a team in the East to move the ball like the Warriors will. And also, someone who has been ghost this whole playoffs, really, Klay Thompson. He's on the defensive side of the ball, doing a tremendous job on some of the best players. And I think you'll continue to see that. His defense has not stepped down one bit. But let's see if he can get it going offensively for once.
And lastly, Miles, give us your detailed prediction for this series. How do you see this one playing out? Is it going to be a repeat? Is it going to be a revenge? Who's your pick?
I mean, man, this is awesome. This is a dream, seeing teams go back 3 times in a row. We haven't seen anything like this. People talk about how the NBA season was ruined. And, playoffs were ruined because we're seeing all these blowouts. But, I mean, you got to look. It was an arms race. A team in the East, arms race. Team in the West, arms race. I'm going Warriors in 6. I think they got to jump out to a lead like last year. They have to come out and be able to shut this door. And I think who's going to be able to help them shut that door this year is going to be Kevin Durant. Because Steph and Kevin Durant together, they really haven't need the big scoring from Klay Thompson and Draymond, because they have been lighting up the scoreboard. And if they're able to get out to that lead like last year, I think they will be able to close the door. And they need to, because in a Game 7, LeBron James, I'm sorry, he has that competitive nature and that spirit to win it every year. So I got Warriors in 6 on this one.
Well, there you have it. Hometown pick for the hometown kid. Thanks for taking the time, Miles. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. And also, the Genius brand, look it up. It's great.
All right, champ. You have a good one.
You too.